right. So without further ado, I'm going to let Jacqueline kind of introduce herself and give you all a little bit of background as to Jacqueline, where she's at, how long she's been in the business, where she came from prior, and yeah. So go ahead and take it away, Jacqueline.
Sure. So I'm Jacqueline. I started in 2016. I started off as an assistant, and I did everything TC to marketing coordinating to door opener to everything. That's basically how I started my career. So I worked my way up under a successful agent. So I think I'm mentioning that because I feel like it contributed a lot to how I run my business now because I kind of got started having to do all of that work for her. And so that was in 2016 out of Lon Pinel. I eventually moved on to being an independent agent at Compass in Walnut Creek. And then I met up with Wes in October of last year. So I've been at WR since. And since I've been at WR, we now are doing a Sonoma team here in Sonoma County out of Santa Rosa. And that's kind of a little bit about me. Well, Douglas and I, we are the team leads of Vine Luxury Group. So that's a little bit about me, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. Let's just jump right into it. And first question, what is your mindset around time management?
Sure. I would say that if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist. And that's a pretty straightforward, fast rule of mine that whether it's actually going to a showing, it needs to be on the calendar to even as something as simple as maybe I'm taking the day off. Like that everything is on the schedule all the time. So if it's not on the schedule, it doesn't exist. That's my mindset around time management.
So you're pretty much a calendar person, like everything's calendared.
Yeah, everything is on a schedule all the time, unless I am on my day off. But even on my outings, family and friends, like I'm always that one that has the agenda of everything we're going to do. So that's just kind of who I am in general, I suppose.
So is there anything that might pop up that takes you off that schedule?
Well, so I have kind of also another philosophy because I mean, life happens, it's not perfect, but unless it's a top money making activity, I really try not to reschedule. So unless it's something like my client wants to see this house for a second time with 1 hour's notice because they really want to write an offer, or they're calling offers due all of a sudden right now. I typically won't drop what I'm doing. I will follow my schedule pretty much to the T unless it's a high money making activity.
That's excellent. I love that. I love that philosophy, and I think that's a great philosophy to have. What if it's just like a random person wanting to see a property, you've never even met him before? Um,
Yeah, well, like Zip Flex. Well, I mean, especially with Zillow Flex, I start my morning at least at 8 o'clock, if not earlier. So I do a bulk of a lot of my time management stuff behind the computer is always in the morning. So I can allow myself to be free pretty much after 3 o'clock. I mean, you have to be available because that's when everyone wants to see properties on the weekdays, as we all know, and then on the weekends. So um, I just try to keep that in mind. And then obviously there's like filler work that you can do. But if you just got into escrow on over the weekend, Monday morning, that's what I did today is I woke up and I started at 8 a.m. sending all of the escrow stuff and the paperwork and had to get that going immediately so I could be available later today for appointments.
nice. Excellent. So what are the top three most important things or habits you have around time
Um, I think the three most important things would be if you're gonna so not everyone likes to time block or time manage. Some it comes more natural to others than some. So I think the first and foremost is to know your abilities. Like don't over or under schedule yourself for tasks on days and times that you're not going to commit. Like if you're like new to time blocking or that you're not great with time management, I wouldn't suggest sitting down at your calendar and booking out what the next 30 days looks like for you. Like, let's just start with something that you know you could commit to, and then you build off of that. So I would say number one of the three is to know your abilities for sure. Um,
Okay.
yeah. And
But
then,
any, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just going to go on to the other two.
Well, I mean, let's stay on that. So like, is there anything, any tips within that that you might have as far as knowing your abilities and proper time blocking or task blocking?
Yeah, I think that like don't like knowing your abilities, like for instance, maybe on Thursdays that's when you go out for like girls night, or maybe that's like your favorite like Zumba class in the morning, or and you're picking up and dropping the kids off from school, their soccer practice on that day. Like Thursday is just like a bunk day. Like don't schedule things on Thursday because you want to be there and be present and enjoy what you're doing, right? And that's kind of time blocking on its own, is to enjoy those things, but to not schedule yourself during a time you know you're going to be busy. Like, don't go and schedule yourself on your calendar to like door knock your farm on Saturday afternoons when you're on Zillow for that weekend, because the likelihood of you getting a call and having to stop doing your farming in the middle of it, or maybe you don't even get to start it and then go off to that appointment because that's a higher money making activity, is likely, right? And then so you're like, oh, well, I didn't farm. Oh, well, and so like it prevents you from giving yourself excuses to not do it, right? So I guess that would be what I mean by like know your abilities.
Okay. Awesome. What's number two for you in
Um,
importance?
this has taken a long time for me to do, so it's a lot easier said than done. But I really have, for the last year, been very on top of myself by committing to completing the tasks of that day for that day, and not like delaying or false promising myself that, oh, I'll just double up tomorrow, or I'll just like double, instead of an hour cold calling today and tomorrow, I'll just do 2 hours tomorrow. Like, really don't do that to yourself. It's just like going to the gym. Like, get the clothes on, get to the gym, get on the Stairmaster, because as soon as you're done with it, you can move on with your day without that guilt, right? So I would say, yeah, just completing the task that you have scheduled for that day, because you put it there for a reason.
I love that. That is such a great point. I hope everybody heard that. Don't double down. I used to do that a lot. I don't do it anymore. I did that early in my real estate career. And you know what? It was more an avoidance tech, it was more of an avoidance tool for me. When I really broke it down, was like, oh well, I gotta do this. So I'll just do double the cold calling tomorrow. Well, did that ever happen? Fuck no. Come on, let's be real. I mean, first off, the things you don't want to do, we tend to find excuses not to do them. And then, I was a great negotiator with myself, quite frankly. And
Yeah.
you learn there's just no negotiating. But anyway, so thank you for saying that. I think that's and also too, I mean, wouldn't you say, um, when you accomplish it, I mean, it's a great feeling of accomplishment when you just
Yeah.
get it done.
Yeah, when it's so much better earned. I mean, because being in sales, like a lot of this has to do with our mouthpiece, right? So like we can get away without being organized or doing everything to the T all the time. Like sometimes we can cut corners and still get the same result, right? But if you've done it the right way, whatever you interpret the right way being, then you feel like very accomplished at the end of it. And the more you go down that road, the more routine it becomes. And then it honestly does help, project you further with success, because then you can just handle more things at once and more success comes. So yeah, so just doing what you need to do the day of.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What's
Uh,
the
go ahead.
nope, you please.
I think the last thing for the three things of habits is also break it down. I think that like what I've noticed is I myself did this too, is I would say, oh, I'm gonna like call my nurture leads for an hour. Well, like, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it at 2 o'clock. So you have to like think about it, because if you sit down at your computer at 2, takes 2 minutes to warm up the computer. You have to pull up your script. You're probably going to want to run through it a couple of times. You got to pull up the Zillow list. You got to review your notes. By the time you actually dial the first number, it's probably 15 minutes into the hour that you've dedicated to it. So I guess when you're like time blocking, especially like routine things, think about like what prep needs to go into it, how long is the actual event, and is there like any post wrap up, especially with my nurture calls. I used to make the call, have the conversation, then take the notes, edit the search, do all that, then move on to the next call. And then I realized I could instead just dedicate 40 of the 60 minutes to calling, make the notes, and then just do all the post wrap up afterwards. And that ended up being more efficient. So that kind of feeds into time blocking, I suppose, just trying to get as much done in that time as efficiently as possible.
So on that real quick, like, so, okay, you said 40 minutes of actual calling, 10 minutes prep time, 10 minutes post time. Do you, when you're time blocking and calendaring, do you break all those things out, or is it just 1 hour of calling and you know that 10 minutes is here on the front end and 10 minutes on the back are going to be different, or do you actually visually break it out that way?
Yeah, no, I mean, now that I've been doing it so routinely, no. But I mean, like when I first started doing this, I mean, I mean, I've been time blocking since, like I said, 2016. And so I would say maybe about 2 years ago, I stopped doing the actual increments of stuff because it's just a habit. It's like instilled in me now that I know it takes me 10 minutes to prep. I know I'm going to dedicate 10 to 15 minutes to post wrap up. So, but in the beginning, I do. I think you should, in my opinion, really structure it that 10 minutes here. So then it's go time. So you don't like give yourself that excuse because it's already 2:10. I got to make my first call. Oh, I got to go to the bathroom, this and that. Nope, I got to make my calls. My 40 minutes starts now.
I like it. I like it. Very good. Does anybody have any questions so far, by the way? It's always fun when it's interactive. Um, so I mean, I know you do calendaring. Can you take us through what that looks like, or what kind of calendaring you use, or what's your favorite one, or
Yeah, I mean, I've used a bunch of different platforms, Asana, Monday. I mean, there's so many out there. After all the money spent and all the hours learning all these different things, today I use Google Calendar. I feel like it's just the best. I'm a Google girl. I love Google, and Google Calendar is just really amazing. Most people have Gmail. I'm a huge Google calendar invite person, as Wes knows. I mean, Wes might say, "Hey, let's jump on a call tomorrow around 3." And I'll send him like a Google invite for 5 minutes. Like that's just who I am. And so I use Google Calendar for everything. And if you're not a big Google Calendar person or you want to start to master Google Calendar, I would say download the Google Calendar app on all your devices. And so if you're not near your phone, maybe your Apple Watch reminds you in 10 minutes you have a call with Wes or something like that. So downloading all the Google apps, I would say on your devices. Something that I learned in the settings is there's a setting you can toggle on called daily agenda. And what it does, it sends you yourself an email at 5 a.m. every day with a breakdown of what your calendar looks like. So that's the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I look at my email. I think most people do. And there's my agenda for the entire day, which is, I mean, it looks almost the same as my Google Calendar app, right? But it is kind of helpful when it comes into an email at 5 a.m. every day. So I would reference maybe like toggling that on. And also I use the iPhone like alarm sometimes. Like I have an alarm set that recurs that gives me a 5-minute warning before all of the weekly or bi-weekly Zoom calls that we have for the brokerage. I use Siri a lot. If I have to return a call to a client and I'm driving, hey Siri, set an alarm and 3 o'clock to call Judy back. I'll use like my iPhone alarm a lot to do stuff too.
For what time?
Oh, okay. And then she just talked. She's always listening, guys.
that's awesome. Oh my gosh, so many great tips I'm already getting. Um, by a show of hands, who uses a calendar? All right, good. Does any by a show of hands, who uses Google as their calendar?
Okay, good. Yeah,
All
popular one.
right, we got the right people on the call. Shoot, I'm thinking there's a lot of people who aren't on the call that probably should be, but you guys obviously got this, so that's good. Um, jump into some other questions, just out of curiosity, because you said you started time blocking in 2016. So
Yeah.
how did you get into time blocking?
Well, I got into it out of necessity, right? Because I basically had this agent who did a good amount of transactions. Like she did like 4 or 5 a month. She brought me on, I was her first assistant ever. And she's like, here you go. And just like dumped all of this stuff onto me. And I was just like, okay, I got to figure this out. Like I had just been a bartender and cocktail waitress prior to getting into real estate. So I had like almost no admin experience. So I just kind of out of necessity had to learn how to break up my day. And I learned that clients often want to talk, after 11 o'clock. They want to see properties after this particular time. So anytime in front of the computer had to get done in the morning, and so I just out of necessity learned how to like block off certain times. So, um, did I answer your question? How did I get into it? I got into it because I had to, because I had too much stuff to do. There was no way one person can handle it unless you were organized.
How do you, so when you first started though, I mean, how do you time block? How would you like, I've never time blocked before. I've never I'm terrible at time management. I want to get started. What would you how would I start? Because even,
Yeah.
by the way, I'm writing notes because there's things I've been doing this since way before you, and I still learn all the time. I love this. I've already got notes of things that I need to implement, or systems and ways I'm not utilizing it to its full advantage.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that like you had mentioned earlier, people don't want to do what they don't want to do. So like I would think of the most undesirable thing that you have to do that you don't want to do and time block that first. Like make that something that you have to do first thing in the day. Like don't save that for the end of the day because it's not going to happen. And vice versa. Like maybe like your favorite thing to do is going on Canva and designing like little social media posts. Like maybe that's like the thing that you love to do. Then like save that for the end of the day as kind of like the reward for having done all the stuff that you don't want to do. Because I've noticed that a lot of people, including myself, if they're not given a schedule or you haven't broken it down, you're just going to go to the things you're naturally good at and comfortable with. And the stuff that's hard and challenging and time consuming is just going to continue to snowball over and over day after day. And that's how you get overwhelmed and burnt out. Yeah.
Excellent. What would you say are some of the top things you should be time blocking first and foremost in this industry?
Yeah. I think that things that are super important that are dependable and reoccurring. Like for instance, like brokers tour is super important, and that a lot of that sound it's fun, but it's like super important because you're learning the inventory, but you're also meeting all of the agents. But you can couple the brokers tour also with taking social media, assuming your listing agent is okay with it, right? But in putting that and building your social media channel at the same time. So maybe you go on broker's tour from 10 to 1 and then you block off a time from 1 to 1:30 to make all the media that you just took look really pretty so you can post it and start coupling things together like that. So I would suggest like time block things that are reoccurring that you know you're going to do. So broker's tour, you need to nurture your leads on Zillow, right? We have our best practices. We have to do that so often, um, for 30 days for nurture leads, and then every week for really hot leads. So like no, just take a time, like you're super free on Tuesday. Maybe the kids are at school, you're by the you're at the house by yourself, or you can escape to go to the office in the afternoon. So like Tuesday afternoon from 1 to 2, that's when you're going to make all your calls. um Lender follow-ups, like that's a reoccurring thing. You always want to be checking in with the lender, whether it's an active transaction or you're trying to get someone pre-approved. And it's also just a good time to reconnect with other lenders. Maybe they'll give you some business, so maybe you do like lender follow-up Fridays or something like that. I don't know. But And then, and then on the weekends you should be busy. I mean, we're all full-time agents. So basically Saturday and Sundays, unless you're taking time off for a holiday or something, I mean, we're all pretty much busy from, at least 12 to 4 or something like that. And if you're not working with clients, maybe you go to open houses or you farm or something like that.
That's a great idea. That's a totally separate topic, but I popped into a few open houses this weekend, and I mean, I like doing that. I should tell everybody, if you're not doing open houses, pop into open houses. You're gonna see
Yeah.
more properties. It's kind of like going on tour, only not. And you're also
Yeah.
meeting other agents, and seeing the market and the inventory, which is, I think, a great thing. So, all very, very good points. Um, how would you say time blocking has helped you in your career and your time management in your career and your personal life?
I think time blocking has mostly helped because it set expectations. Expectations for myself, my clients, and those around me in my personal life. Um, I think especially when it's like summer season and maybe we're juggling like 15 different clients. If someone's super interested in 123 Main Street and they're like, hey, yeah, I want to write, and you're like, cool, like offers are due Tuesday, like what you're gonna, on Monday mornings, like you have a time from, whatever, 10 to 11 where you do all disclosure polls and reviews for your clients. So then you can tell Mr. and Mrs. Smith, great, I'm happy you love 123 Main Street. I'm going to send you disclosures around 11 o'clock on Monday. Like you can tell them with confidence that they're going to get them by that time. And so they're not hitting you up on Sunday night saying, hey, where are the disclosures? We want to write. Like you've already set that expectation from the get. Like this is when you're going to get the disclosures, or this is when we're going to write the offer. I'm going to write my offers, at this time at night, 6 o'clock on Mondays or something like that. I mean, this is real estate. It can't always be ideal, but if you try to actually block this time, it makes life a lot easier. So, like I said, and if it's not like a high money making activity, then try really not to skirt it. Try to really stick to it. If your friend wants to go see a movie, be like, hey, can we do like 5 o'clock instead of 4? Like, you don't have to tell them it's because you have other stuff to do, but just like try to push to make it work for you.
I like that. I like that. Cool. What are some tips? Do you have any tips on how to stick to time management, time blocking?
Have to stick to it. Um, Well, like I said, start with the undesirable things first, and then make the most desirable things last. And then also, in general, if you're not really great with time or you haven't really done time blocking or time management type of stuff like that before, start like small, build around something. Like I gave that example of maybe you are not consistent with going to broker's tour. Be consistent by going to broker's tour and build off of it. Take your media, go to Canva, make it pretty, post it on social media, or develop something that all kind of works together and start building little blocks that you can do, and then keep working off of it until it's what you want it to be. I think also as independent contractors, we kind of like work all the time, and it can be really like demanding on our significant others and our family. So like I have a set time that I take off every night, and I have like I just when I clock off at that time, I'm very happy and relaxed because I know that I worked and did everything I could possibly do that day. And even prepped maybe and took off some of tomorrow's tasks, so maybe I can get off early tomorrow or whatnot. But just having a hard start and stop time, I think could be like the first kind of easy one to do. Especially if your calendar is always fluid. Sometimes you start at 8 in the morning, sometimes you start at 2 p.m. That would make a very challenging life, I would assume. I don't know. That's just my opinion of that. Yeah, I think it would be helpful to have hard start and stop times.
I really like that. I just wrote that down. That's why I was kind of like, I'm writing that down, like having a hard start. I struggle with that, and I need to be, that's one thing I know I need to be better at is just having a hard start, stop. And you know what? When you have I've done that in the past, I've gotten so away from that. And I know when I have a hard stop time, it tends to make me work a little more smarter and efficiently. But even then, it's like if you can just, okay, that's the hard stop. Whatever's not done isn't done, and you know,
Yeah,
recalendar it to another time to finish it up. It's like take the box off the shelf. When it's time to put the box on the shelf, you put it back on the shelf.
right.
Um, thank you for that reminder, as I have gotten way away from that. There was a time where I had hard start and stop times. So that is a great point. Um, Curious question for you. How
Okay.
do you feel about um, how do you feel about flex time or no white space time? If that makes if you calendar a lot on Google, you know what I mean by no white space.
Right. That like even you like I have a miscellaneous hour every day. Is that what you're referencing? Yeah. I have like a
Yeah,
catch-all, catch-up period of time too where like for instance, like Wes had asked me to do this and he said, what are here's some questions maybe you can answer. I was able to turn that and get that back around to him very quickly because I had that miscellaneous hour, whereas like I kind of envision like doing tasks like Pac-Man, like try to get them done as they come. And so that miscellaneous catch-up hour allows me to do that. I also really like to do a post wrap up at the end of the day. Like I don't just send an email and then go off. Like I set myself up for success for the next day, which means zero new emails in my inbox. Like zero emails are in my inbox by end of day. I have to have sorted them or answered them or done what I needed to do. So when I wake up the next morning, it's like new business. It's not old business that's trickling over that I didn't wrap up prior to. So I would have a miscellaneous hour kind of like late morning, and then I would have a post wrap up evening one to prep you for the next day so you can start, going 60 miles an hour and not just trying to take care of last evening stuff.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. That is so good. I like that post wrap up. I usually try to I do the same thing. I have a wrap up half hour every night. Sometimes it takes very little because I've been so on top of it all day, but it's always there to remind me. And then, part of my personal code of conduct is to wrap up my day and print out my next day before I quit for the day. That way I can take a look at it, have it in my hand, and kind of see it. So when I go to bed, my brain is clear. I mean, my I used to have the hardest time sleeping, and I don't sleep a whole lot, but my sleep is good these days. And when I like walk into the bedroom, I it my brain's shut off already because I
Yeah.
have a routine, kind of like you. I have a routine that clears everything out. So it's very easy for me to turn it off nowadays.
Yeah.
Where before, most of my real estate career, probably for the first 20 of it, I couldn't do that.
Yeah. It's like you got stuff in the queue all night long, and it
Right.
needs to
Oh,
be processed.
100%. Well, then, I mean, because you're laying there and just kind of going through things like, I
Yeah,
take care of this, I take care of that. Oh my gosh, I forgot to do this. And nothing's going to
right.
ruin your sleep worse than that, in my opinion. And just knowing what my next day is like and when it has to start, I go to sleep kind of at peace. And most of the time, knowing what, and my day kind of starts the same time every day, but I usually wake up, I set my alarm, but I usually wake up before my alarm because I'm set. I'm like, my brain and my body is so programmed because like I said, I got a bunch of takeaways and I'm a time management calendaring person. So this is fantastic just to, and two of them were reminders of things I used to do and I let go of that are like, why did I stop doing that?
Yeah,
Especially that hard start and stop.
yeah,
I love the Siri reminders. I've got to get better about that. And I keep saying that I want to do alarms for like the hard stops, right? And as well as alarms for getting up and taking breaks. I vacillate back and forth a lot between the no white space. I think I used to try and leave like 15 minutes between everything just to allow for a return phone call or this or that.
right.
And I've gotten away from that. I feel like I should probably go back to that to keep my anxiety level down a little bit.
Yeah.
But I really like your idea of like just every day, calendar an hour of miscellaneous. And hey, catch up. I mean, what are you doing during in that miscellaneous?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's catch up, or if it's like low priority items that are not time sensitive, it's like I'll get to that later. Maybe, it could literally be anything. Like maybe someone on the team wants me to review a drafted offer before they sent it, and maybe due date isn't due for 2 days or something. Like, is it going to kill them if I wait 3 hours to review it? No. So like I'm not going to stop everything I'm doing to take on a low priority task. Like that's something I can do during my miscellaneous hour. Or maybe it's just, I don't know, random emails for certain like inquiries or something like that. I mean, if it's Basically, if you're not like a lead, if you're not like going to make money, it's in my opinion, you're not high priority. So you're going to get kind of probably put in the miscellaneous kind of file, like uploading inspection reports to Disclosure IO to share with my client. That's a great example of something that I would time block. I wouldn't immediately get that email and then take care of that task.
Love it. Actually, that was one of the top things I wanted to tell everybody as a reminder. Make sure you guys all really heard this very clearly. Money making activities, everything she does is done before 3 p.m.
Yeah.
All the money making activities, all the hardcore stuff, because after 3 p.m., that's really when you're going to end up showing. That's when your day is going to get crazier. For some of you, it's earlier than that because you have kids, drop or pick up, I mean, and you want to schedule that. Uh, the one thing I used to do, and I still do it, is because everything to me is a roadmap. To me, if I don't have things calendared, man, where does the day go? Where does the week go? Where does the year go? I for years and years and years and years and years, I've always sat down, and trying to think of how long I've been using Google now. Before Google, you literally used to use a paper calendar, and we would sit down in November every year and we'd book our weekends off or time away or personal time first and foremost, because that's to me so important. And then everything, and then I don't know if you've ever done this. You have this philosophy. One of my philosophies: if you erase, you must replace.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you exchange it for a different project.
Yeah, and just reminders. Like Gina Marie was really funny. She goes, "You're golfing Friday?" I'm like, actually, no, I don't have time to go Friday, but I have it in there like as a placeholder because I want to get back into that. So I put it in there, and realistically, I have time. Great, I will. If not, I just keep moving it. So it's kind of that reminder in your face. I have that for a couple different things, motorcycle riding too. Like I'll placehold, it's like don't assume if you see it in my calendar, Gina Marie. I love you, but that doesn't mean that that's if it is, I'll send you the invite so you know that that's really what's going on in my world.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it's just kind of a placeholder. Like, hey, if I have a really productive week and I don't have any money, anything, any clients to show, that's what I'd like to do. And so it's just a reminder, a placeholder. Because what I've learned is if I don't do that at all, I forget to do these things. I'm focused so much on, then I'll fill my calendar with everything else.
Yeah.
And sometimes what I'm filling it with is not always money making activities, but it's also not, that's what I'm looking for, like fill me up type
Right.
things,
Fulfillment. Yeah. Yeah.
replenish my gas tank with what fills it up. Um, and you guys, she's been time blocking and managing since 2016. That's you got to start somewhere. And I know a lot of you have calendars, but how effective are you using them? That's what I always ask myself: is how effective am I being? And if you're not being real effective, one thing that Jacqueline said was, in the beginning, just get really structured with it, and use the reminder settings, reward system. I have a thing where everything in my calendar is an appointment. I literally schedule time with my kids, put it in my calendar,
Mhm.
and quick little story is back in the day, my friends used to say that is horrible. Like, how can you do that? I'm like,
I do
well,
that.
actually, because I go to my calendar, my kids know exactly when they're going to have focus time with me, not coming home and sitting on the couch, turning on the TV, and they're sitting there with me. That's not time spent. Sorry. My calendar time is very intentional time with kids. I mean, I know how this business can be. And most of you know, and if you don't, Wednesdays, 4:30. You're not going to get a hold of me the rest of the night. That's date night, no phones. Every Wednesday. Unless we have a weekend away, then we might forego that because I probably got some extra stuff I got to get done. Thursday mornings before school, CC and I, breakfast, because I know that we can get busy as independent contractors and time can just, before you know it, weeks have gone by and you're like, crap, I'm missing this or I'm missing that to the things that are really important to you. So I would really encourage everybody, two things. What are the most important things, the most important people to you, and calendar those first. And secondly, is what are your most valuable money making activities, and do those before you do anything else. Like Jacqueline said, if you like to create like Canva or whatever and want to do some posts, do that after you've done your updated your nurtures and called and checked on all your clients and your leads. That's the first thing I do just about every day is check in on that because those are what makes me the money. That's what brings in the money, right? That's what we work so hard for. And the other thing, for those who have kids or don't have kids or gonna have kids or never have kids, doesn't matter. Anything that's important to you, like if I know like this week I'm traveling, so on Thursday. And so is Cece. So we talked about it's like, well, this week's kind of done. But if I wasn't and she wasn't, it would be like, okay, I can't make Thursday, and I'd have her come in my office and I'd show her what's a good I think I can do it this day. Does that work for you? And you know what? It shows that you care enough with people. Anyway. Any questions for Jacqueline? Jacqueline, you did an amazing job. You were so articulate and on point. By the way, look, we're at 37 minutes because that's what time management and time blocking does. It keeps you very efficient, by the way. So,
7 minutes over schedule. No, I'm just kidding.
yes. So, well, you know what, I know a lot of people are going to be watching this after the fact. I wish we had more people on here, but thank you everybody for making the time and having it in your calendar and scheduling it. And Jacqueline, yes, give Jacqueline a round of applause. Thank you for doing this for us.
Thank you.
Super appreciate you. Like I said, I have about almost half a dozen takeaways and things that I'm actually going to implement. So uh thank you for that. And with that, everybody, go look at your calendars and make sure you're scheduling it right.
Thank you. Bye.